The Underground Feast. Michael Donovan stared at the cracked screen of Sarah's phone, the last message she sent glowing ominously in the dim light of his apartment. On the subway. Something's not right. That was all it said, time-stamped 12:47 a.m., 3 days ago. Since then, silence. The police had been no help, dismissing it as another runaway case in a city that devoured dreams and spat out nightmares. But Michael knew Sarah. She wasn't the type to just disappear. Something had happened to her, something terrible, and he was determined to find out what. New York, once a beacon of possibility, now loomed like a predator, its skyscrapers casting shadows that seemed to claw at his resolve. He clutched the phone tighter, its cold plastic a tether to his friend, and made a decision that would change everything. With resolve hardening in his chest, Michael knew what he had to do. After hours of pacing and futile attempts to sleep, he made up his mind. He would retrace Sarah's steps, take the same train at the same time, and see if he could uncover any clues. It was a long shot, but it was better than doing nothing. Grabbing his jacket and a flashlight, he headed out into the night, the city's pulse thrumming beneath his feet as he descended into the subway station. The air was thick with the scent of oil and decay, the platform littered with discarded tickets and cigarette butts. He felt the weight of the city's indifference, but Sarah's face, her bright smile, her fierce loyalty, urged him forward. He boarded the train, choosing a seat near the back, and settled in for the ride that would lead him to the heart of the city's secrets. The train was nearly empty, just a few late-night commuters and the occasional vagrant. Michael chose a seat near the back, where he could observe without being noticed. As the train rattled through the tunnels, the flickering lights and rhythmic clatter seemed to whisper secrets of the city's underbelly. He fought to stay awake, but the exhaustion from days of worry soon lulled him into a fitful sleep. Dreams of Sarah flickered through his mind, her laughter, her voice calling out in fear. He awoke with a start, the train's screeching brakes jolting him back to consciousness. The car was empty now, the lights flickering erratically. Looking at his watch, he saw it was 2:13 a.m. He had missed his stop, but the train was still moving. That didn't make sense. The subway should have terminated by now. A sense of unease crept over him as he stood up and made his way to the front of the car. It was then that he noticed the door to the next car was slightly ajar, and a foul smell began to waft in, metallic and rotten, like a slaughterhouse left to fester. Peering through the window, he saw a sight that made his blood run cold. A large man, dressed in a dark suit, was methodically dismembering a body, his movements precise and practiced. Blood splattered the walls and floor, and several other bodies hung from hooks, their lifeless eyes staring into nothingness. The man worked with a butcher's cleaver, carving flesh with a reverence that was almost ritualistic. Michael's stomach churned, but he couldn't look away. The horror was mesmerizing, a grotesque ballet of death that seemed to pulse with the city's own heartbeat. He realized with a sinking dread that Sarah might have met this fate. Michael's heart pounded in his chest as he burst into the car, the sight before him almost too horrific to comprehend. "What the hell are you doing?" he shouted, his voice echoing off the blood-streaked walls. The man in the dark suit turned slowly, his movements deliberate and unhurried. In his hand, he held a butcher's cleaver, its blade slick with crimson. His face was a mask of indifference, eyes like chips of ice that seemed to look right through Michael. For a moment, time stood still. Then, without a word, the man advanced, the cleaver raised high. Michael's instincts kicked in. He dove to the side just as the blade whistled through the air where his head had been. The coppery stench of blood filled his nostrils, mingling with the man's sour sweat. He scrambled to his feet, his mind racing, searching for anything he could use as a weapon. His eyes landed on a fire extinguisher mounted on the wall. With a surge of adrenaline, he yanked it free and turned to face his attacker. The man was already upon him, swinging the cleaver in a deadly arc. Michael raised the extinguisher to block, the metal clanging against metal, sending shockwaves up his arms. He gritted his teeth, pushing back to create distance, his heart hammering as he thought of Sarah, her smile, her voice. He couldn't let this monster win. He had to find out what happened to her. The train lurched suddenly, throwing both men off balance. Michael stumbled but stayed upright, while the man staggered, his cleaver embedding itself in the floor with a dull thunk. Seizing the opportunity, Michael swung the extinguisher with all his might, aiming for the man's head. But the man was quick. He raised his arm to block, and the extinguisher glanced off his shoulder. He grunted in pain but didn't falter, wrenching the cleaver free and lunging at Michael again. Michael dodged to the left, feeling the whoosh of air as the blade missed him by inches. He countered with another swing of the extinguisher, this time connecting with the man's side. There was a satisfying thud, and the man doubled over, winded. Michael didn't hesitate. He brought the extinguisher down on the man's back, driving him to his knees. But the man was resilient. With a roar, he surged upward, tackling Michael to the ground. They grappled on the floor, the cleaver skittering away across the car. Michael's hands found the man's throat, squeezing with all his strength. The man's eyes bulged, his hands clawing at Michael's face, leaving bloody scratches that stung like fire. The train shook violently, and Michael lost his grip. The man rolled away, gasping for breath. Both men staggered to their feet, circling each other warily. Michael's eyes darted to the cleaver, lying just out of reach. He made a dash for it, but the man was faster, kicking it away and delivering a punishing blow to Michael's stomach. Michael doubled over, the wind knocked out of him, his vision swimming. The man grabbed him by the hair, yanking his head back, ready to deliver a killing punch. But Michael, in a last-ditch effort, drove his elbow into the man's groin. The man howled in pain, releasing Michael and stumbling backward. Seizing the moment, Michael spotted the fire extinguisher nearby. He grabbed it and, with a primal scream, swung it with every ounce of strength he had left. The heavy cylinder connected with the man's temple, the impact reverberating through the car. There was a sickening crunch, and the man's eyes rolled back as he collapsed to the floor, blood pouring from the wound. Michael stood over him, chest heaving, the extinguisher still clutched in his hands. He watched as the man's body twitched once, then went still. Only then did he allow himself to breathe, the adrenaline slowly ebbing away, leaving him shaky and exhausted. As he caught his breath, Michael noticed something glinting on the floor near the man's body. It was the cleaver, its blade smeared with blood. Curious, he picked it up, turning it over in his hands. Etched into the handle were the words, "Property of R. Thorne." So that was his name, Thorne. Michael shuddered, the reality of what he had just done sinking in. But the train did not stop. It continued its relentless journey, carrying him deeper into the unknown. After what felt like an eternity, the train began to slow, its brakes squealing as it approached a station unlike any Michael had ever seen. The walls were covered in ancient, crumbling tiles, their patterns swirling in ways that hurt his eyes. Stepping out onto the platform, he felt a chill run down his spine. Before him stood a group of figures, their forms gaunt and elongated, skin pale as death. Their eyes glowed with an eerie light, fixing on him with predatory interest. One of them stepped forward, its movements graceful yet menacing. When it spoke, its voice was like the rustling of dead leaves. "You have entered the sanctum of the city fathers," it intoned. "We are the guardians of this city, its true rulers since time immemorial." Michael's mind reeled. City fathers? He had never heard of such a thing. But as he looked at these beings, he knew they were not human. They were something ancient, something that had been here long before the city above was built. The leader continued, "You have slain our servant Thorne. For that, you must take his place." Michael's heart sank. "What? No, I didn't mean to. I was just trying to," but the city father silenced him with a wave of its hand. "It is done. The pact must be upheld. You will serve us as he did." As they spoke, Michael noticed a pile of bones in the corner of the station. Among them, something caught his eye. A necklace. Sarah's necklace. His breath caught in his throat. "Sarah," he whispered. The city father followed his gaze. "Yes, she was one of many who have fed us over the centuries. Now you will ensure that we continue to be sated." Horror and despair washed over Michael. He wanted to scream, to run, but there was nowhere to go. He was trapped in this nightmare, bound to these monstrous beings. Then, without warning, they were upon him. Their cold hands seized him, holding him fast. The leader reached out and, with a swift motion, grasped his tongue. Pain exploded in Michael's mouth as it was torn out, blood filling his throat. He tried to scream, but only a gurgling sound emerged. As he fell to his knees, the world spinning around him, he felt a strange sensation. It was as if the city itself was welcoming him, embracing him into its dark heart. He could sense its pulse, its hunger, and in that moment he understood. He was now a part of this ancient cycle, a servant to the city fathers, forever bound to feed their insatiable appetite. With a final, shuddering breath, Michael accepted his fate. He rose to his feet, blood still dripping from his mouth, and looked upon his new masters with a mixture of fear and reverence. The transformation was complete. He was the new butcher of the underground. If you enjoyed this video, please do not forget to like, comment, or share this video with your friends. Subscribe to our channel to hear more stories like this one.